It's been some years since I presented at the VRIC event, and I have been looking forward to this, and I hope that we've got something to share that you will find very interesting today. We're just going to run this presentation in two parts. I'm going to give you a brief rundown of BMC and our project in the Yukon, the Kudzukaya project, which is in Kaska territory, Kaska traditional territory in the Yukon. And then I'm going to step down and let Robin Black, our VP of Exploration, tell you about the very exciting work we've been doing in the last few years and what our plans are this year. So there's a couple of disclaimers at the front here. Feel free to read them on our website when we post this. So the overview about BMC. BMC's a private Canadian company with major shareholders in North America, UK and Australia. Our management team are very experienced in mine development, exploration and mine operation. Our principal asset is in the Finlayson district of the Yukon territory, as I said, in Kaska traditional territory. And we're all about VMS, and Robin's going to talk to you about VMS, but our project is a VMS project, which means that it's high grade and multiple occurrences in a district. Very diverse group of people and very, very experienced and a very stable group of people. I think we've had turnover of one person in the company in our senior staff in the last 5 years. You can see the location there, the Kudzukaya project. So Kudzukaya is both a place name, but it also represents 6 projects that we've purchased in the Yukon that we collectively call the Kudzukaya project. It's on the Robert Campbell Highway, good access to by road, airstrip and to port. So the project is owned 100% by BMC. It is a world-class deposit. It's a very, very exciting project. Very experienced people. We have advanced the project a lot since we bought it in 2015. It was originally owned by Caminco. It was discovered in the early 1990s. It was permitted to build a mine in 1998. We bought the project off Teck in 2015. We almost immediately found a new ore body called the Krakatoa lode adjacent to the existing ore body. We decided to re-permit the project as a slightly larger, more modern project, taking into account some requests from the local Kaska in relation to water treatment plant and some other aspects which we'll talk about in a minute. And through our acquisition process, we've been quietly and calmly acquiring all the claims in the district. And so we now have, as I said, 6 projects in the Finlayson district that are collectively we call Kudzukaya. The ABM mine, which is the proposed mine at the Kudzukaya project, as I said, was previously permitted. It's a relatively small project, a relatively small mine proposal, but what it is it's very high grade, and so it is a very significant producer. And so it will be Canada's most significant zinc producer. It will be Canada's largest producer of silver, and it will be a top 10 producer of copper. And incidentally, it will be one of only 4 mines in the world that are a top 20 zinc producer and a top 20 silver producer. So it's significant for the Yukon, it's significant to Canada, it's significant in the world, and zinc and copper are 2 very important critical minerals as designated by multiple governments around the world. So very important project locally, regionally and internationally. We do have buyers in place for the concentrate for the first 5 years. Some of the concentrate will be exported. A large portion of it, for example, the copper concentrate will all be transported to the Horn smelter in Canada, fulfilling a very important need for local-based product. So I mentioned critical minerals and the copper, zinc and silver. You can just see from this graphic here what those minerals are used in. We talk about new technology, we talk about electrification of the grid, we talk about reducing carbon emissions. These minerals are absolutely critical for achievement of all of that. Greenhouse gas emissions, a question we often get asked is your project going to produce more than the negatives it might create? This is a very special project. There are 5 critical elements in this project. So we've got copper, zinc, silver, lead, which is very minor, and gold. And because of that, when we looked around the world for projects to buy, we were specifically looking for zinc projects with strong credits. And the gold and silver credits for this project, for example, produce about 45% of the revenue. So yes, this is a zinc project, but it is not just a zinc project. And because of the high grades and the nature of the project, this is going to be one of the lowest emitters of greenhouse gas emissions in the world per unit of economic output. And this graph just shows that unit of economic output as a copper product or copper equivalent. But it could be a zinc equivalent, it could be a silver equivalent. You can do these graphs anyway, but you can see that this project stacks up in every single way. In terms of ESG side, look, I could have put up 5 slides of the things that we're doing around environment, social and governance for this project, but safe to say that one of the things that we were looking for a project was to be in a jurisdiction that we could believe in, a jurisdiction where we could rely on process, a jurisdiction where people were knowledgeable about mining. And this project, when we bought the project, it came with a socio-economic agreement with the local CASCA. That project, that CEPA was signed in the early 2000s. In 2019, we signed a memorandum of understanding and agreed to modernise that CEPA. And we have a proposal in front of CASCA at the moment, which we hope to start discussing soon. This project has been the subject of a number of economic studies as different people have owned it. So a pre-feasibility study was completed in 1994. Further technical work was done in the early 2000s. We bought the project in 2015, as I said. We basically took everything back to scratch and confirmed with both drilling, metallurgical and design that the project would do what we wanted it to do. But one of the important things we did was we increased the resource base. So the original resource base was 10 million tonnes. We've now taken that resource base at the ABM resource to 20 million tonnes. And also in our process of acquisition, not only have we acquired a lot of very prospective ground, we've also picked up the Kona copper gold deposit to the south of us. So we now have a resource base to work from, and it was 3 times what we bought. So it's been quite a productive 9 years from that perspective. And the one thing you will notice, which Robin will take you through, is the extremely high grades of those resources. So if you think about modern copper or gold deposits, this could be a copper gold deposit if you're just looking at the grades of the copper and gold. But we have 5 products, which is one of the things that makes this project so exciting. Feasibility study, we completed the feasibility study in 2019. We updated it in 2020, and we took the decision in 2023 to refresh those numbers. There's been a lot of talk about capital cost increases since COVID. So we went back, when we reviewed every single number in the feasibility study, we went back to manufacturers, got them to requote, went back to suppliers and said, okay, how much to deliver that again? Please update. We took into account the carbon tax impact for Canada's carbon tax, which had been brought in since we had completed the original feasibility study. We updated for long-term metal prices. So we don't use spot prices in our calculations. We only use long-term metal prices. Base metals, and in fact most metals, are cyclical in nature. So if you want to have a project that's going to succeed, it has to succeed at every point in the price cycle. And so we don't use convenient spot prices when they're high. We take a long-term conservative view. So you can see from the numbers here that this project has excellent returns, and it's a 9-year life for the initial project. What actually happened was that As a private company, we needed to make some decisions about when we stopped drilling. So we just drilled the ore body until we got what we thought was going to be 10 years. The ore body continues at depth, it continues on strike. Robin's going to take you through some of the exploration targets, all within a kilometre of the actual of the lode as it is. We just stopped drilling, and we ended up with a 9-year life. As it turned out, we were out by 10%, but that's what we did. We just stopped drilling. So the discount rate of 7% reflects the combination of roughly 50% base metals and 50% precious metals. And you can see that the IRR, the internal rate of return, which reflects a return to investors over a period of time, is high. It's much higher than most projects that you will likely see at this conference. The next question we often get asked is, okay, great, what is the economic benefit? Why is this a project that's special? And you can see that when we start talking about an NPV for the project, for the starter project of over 600 million US, that's after taxes are paid. And so out of this project comes, $750 million worth of direct economic benefit to the Yukon through taxes, through royalties, through profit sharing with First Nations, which is the proposal that we've got on the table. Once again, this is quite unique because these sorts of taxes mean, and this sort of economic activity from what is a relatively straightforward project, it's about 9% of the gross domestic product of the Yukon as estimated a couple of years ago. Perhaps with rising expenditure of government, perhaps that's a little bit less now. But at the time, it was a significant investment, significant economic opportunity, and significant employer. In summary about the project key economic features, it's got very, very attractive NPV to capital ratios. That's important because when you start talking about how much money you want to invest and you start talking about what the value is that you're going to get back, that's a risk assessment. It's got a very low unit cost of production, which means, so one of the things we've got, because we have got 5 metals that we're going to sell, if you start thinking about zinc, which is the dominant metal, zinc is about 33% of our revenue. Silver is about 29%. But when you start looking at the zinc production, for example, and saying what's the cost of production per pound, the cash cost of production is about minus 25 cents, which means that it's free and then some. Very unique, again, unique in the world on that front. So very highly leveraged. Those 5 metals also produce what's called a natural hedge. So when base metal prices go up, generally that means the world economies are going well. Maybe the precious metals comes down. If in a different part of the cycle the base metals go down, precious metals go up. So for example, the gold prices now is well over $2,000 a tonne. This project makes a lot of money at today's prices, unlike many other projects. So again, a very unique project. I'm going to talk about timelines and permitting before I go. So we have been going through, we made the decision in 2017 that we were going to replace the existing permit with a new permit. There was a few reasons for that. One of them was we'd found the Krakatoa lode, so we recognised that the annual throughput through the mill that was permitted was going to be a little bit smaller than it was ideal. Secondly, we've been talking to the Ross River Denner Council and going through some items with Casca, and they had identified a couple of asks. One of those asks was around water, and so we wanted to build into the project design a water treatment plant, a state-of-the-art water treatment plant, which means that we will build that water treatment plant before the project goes into production, not after. And what that provides is a degree of certainty for all parties, including our directors, I might add, that this project will have no negative water issues at all. Now that's a $30 million upfront capital investment that we are making because Casca asked us to. So not a small commitment, but a commitment we were very happy to make. The second part is that we're going to use dry stack tails, which means we're not going to have a wet tailings dam. The original permitted project had a wet tailings dam in the creek. We've decided to take that out of the creek. Again, that was after a lot of discussion with Casca. And again, it was an easy thing to agree to. We agreed wholeheartedly with the ask. And so, yes, there was another capital cost with that of about $15 to $20 million, but we think that we will reap the benefit of that over the long term. So there was a judicial review that has just been completed. That will result in an outcome and a decision document, a final decision document being issued before the 2nd of April. So we have now a degree of certainty that is quite pleasing. Economic update is now complete. We will be starting a FEED study in July. Licensing completion dates, these are our dates, maybe not the government's dates, but these are our dates. We think about a year from the decision document being issued, we should be very close to having all the permits in place, all the major permits in place. There'll still be a couple of minor ones to do. And then the financing process for the project, we have 3 major funds as shareholders. They have funded us very well over the roughly $130 million US that we've invested in the project over the last 10 years. But we are going to go out for a formal financing process starting in February, in fact. And then we expect that to take about 9 to 12 months. So we're bringing things to align so that by the time we get the final permits, that we will have all other things organised and we can make a formal investment decision at or around that time. So I'm now going to hand over to Robin Black, who Robin's our Vice President of Exploration, and he, together with Neil Martin, have been with us from day one. And Robin's team was responsible for finding the Krakatoa lode, which was the catalyst for a whole lot of excitement, I've got to tell you. So he'll tell you a bit more about that. Robin.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Hopefully he's gotten you excited about the project development, and I'm here to give you a bit more information on how we're going to expand the project and grow it. So, as Scott mentioned, we're in central Yukon, in the territory of the Kaska First Nation. You can see here is the ABM deposit, which is the focus of the mine development. We've also picked up the Kona, which Scott referenced earlier down here, and a few other properties in and amongst the Finlayson district. We do have 357 square kilometers worth of tenure. There are multiple mineralizing events in the district. It's known to host several prospects over and beyond ours. We acquired it in 2015. Did, as Scott mentioned, a drill out to get it to a point where we could develop it, and then have been working steadily on developing some ideas for further exploration. So I won't belabor this slide too much, but a few key takeaways. It's a VHMS system. The big ones are deposited underneath the seafloor. The current environment of deposition is in a volcanic environment on the seafloor. These deposits need structures, tapping the crust to bring fluids and the minerals up near surface. As I said, the big ones are deposited under the seafloor, and often there are associated disseminated high copper deposits in these structures of the feeder zones. Another key takeaway is these are globally significant deposits for base and precious metals. Some good examples are Rosebery, greater than 50 million tons. That is a subsea floor replacement style deposit. Golden Grove, also greater than 50 million tons. The Horn Lens here in Canada. Kidd Creek, Conception, and some of the feeder zones that are copper rich that I mentioned before are also quite significant. Good examples are Jebel Said in Saudi Arabia at 31 million tons, as well as McIlvenna Bay here in Manitoba. At the bottom here, another key takeaway is the amount of resources that we currently have. So this is the deposit shapes in the resource shapes. These are other VMS deposits, just to give you a sense of how these things are spatially located, that there are small gaps. They are long life. They give back to focused exploration for years and years and years. So here we are at our property, Felsic Volcanics, running here in pink. Notably, we have mapped in the mag and on the surface at the property structures. You recall from the last slide, structures are key for focusing deposits. Indeed, ABM sits adjacent to one of these major structures at the paleo seafloor, which is represented by this contact here, Wind Lake above, basinal sediments, felsic volcanics below. We have another area of interest that we've also mapped some structures cross-cutting this stratigraphy, so a site of another deposit that we have on the property, GP4F. So very, very prospective from our point of view. Zooming into the deposit, again, felsic volcanic rocks in pink. We have some indicators of high temperature fluids flowing along these structures, so it's not just the structures themselves, a high copper bismuth soil geochemistry. There are some previous drill intersections that are quite spectacular, such as 5.2% copper, 5% zinc, 2.5 grams gold, looking pretty good. These are historical intercepts drilled by Caminco, and like ourselves, Caminco discovered this deposit. Sorry, like ourselves, they focused mainly on development of the project. They discovered it on the first hole, so it went gangbusters to develop it. So really, there is a lot of room for additional exploration in and around the deposit itself. So not only in the soil geochem, but in the deposit itself, we see trends that denote where these structures are focusing fluids, and those are the key areas of exploration for us. They're marked by high copper-lead ratios in the mineralization, on trend with this pink soil geochem, as well as the thickness of the ore deposit has a similar trend that's parallel to the structures and to the soil geochem. So it's all lining up. So this is some of the work we did this summer. We did a 3D IP survey. On the left, you'll see chargeability results, greater than 35 millivolts. On the right, you'll see high conductivity, both a proxy for disseminated mineralization. Of key note here is some of the larger conductive bodies that are, again, parallel to that trend. We also have a significant conductivity anomaly here, adjacent to some of those higher grade drill holes that I mentioned previously. In section, this is what they look at. There's two sections we'll see here. This one to the northwest of the survey, cutting through the deposit here. This is that large anomaly at depth in the chargeability, as well as the conductivity there. Again, further south, through this chargeability anomaly here, you can see it's about 100 meters below the surface, so quite shallow, easily reachable with the drill hole. And bringing it all together with the mag, you can see again here our trends into the deposit, that Krakatoa lode that Scott mentioned that we found in 2015, 2016, our chargeability anomaly. And of note is this strong mag feature. ABM, the deposit, also shows up quite strong due to the presence of magnetite and pyrrhotite in the deposit. And again, this area is very interesting for us due to the previous drilling that's intersected significant results on the margin of some of these anomalous soil and geophysical anomalies. So bring it all together and try and wrap this up a little bit. What's the key takeaway here from this? We've got at least 2 target areas that are on the scale of ABM and Krakatoa, greater than 1 kilometer in length, strike length. These zones are multi-faceted targets: geochem, geophysics, geology, previous drilling. We also have some target vectors beneath the known mineralization where these structures might be focusing copper-rich fluids, so underneath the deposit itself, beyond the current limits of drilling. Again, just to reiterate, the outlook for the property exploration is very good, and we do have at least 2 to 3 large ABM-sized deposits to increase our resources in the near term. Thank you.